Hello, are you there? Is anyone there? Can you hear me? I don't know.
There you are.
Okay.
Oh, there's
Am
Matt.
I on? I don't know. Can people hear me? Can you hear me?
They say you can hear you. They said they can hear you. Do you see in the comments over there? People are commenting.
I can hear you on my end.
Okay, I guess I got everybody. I just didn't have you in here again. I thought I'm still learning.
We're all here. We're live.
Good evening, everyone.
Hijacking today.
Welcome. We're just trying to fill out another one. If you all were here last week, Ricky elected not to come on again this evening, so these dirty folks from over on the dirty side conned me into trying it again. So at least they got it. At least they got the link posted, I guess, where everybody can. It's up at the top. I had posted it earlier.
Yep, it's up there. I see it.
Okay, all right. So
You're doing great, JW.
yeah. I've been a bundle of nerves here all day, so it's been a long day. I started about 3:30 this morning, so
Yeah. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I've been around the world though. I feel like it, and
Oh, I'm sure.
if I fall asleep on you, well, you guys will have to carry on. So
I was gonna say we'll have to just carry on inevitably because we can't shut it down. You're the only one with the power to turn it off.
Right?
yeah.
It'll be the never-ending stream.
Going and going.
We'll just sit here and watch JW sleep.
Hey, Danae, Jack, Mike, Dan.
I lost
Appreciate y'all.
150 pounds. Do I look better than ever?
See what happens. If you get tired of me, you can always go to that guy that's not near as smart as I am. It's Mr. Burns up there up at the northern part, central part of the state. You can always go on with him.
Yeah, I saw he is having the Hive Alive people on.
What's going on in your world there, Matthew? Are you got your bees all under control?
Yeah. Everyone's building and starting to freshen up all the top bars. So they got a little bit of nectar coming in, maybe from maples. Our red buds are probably going to bloom within the next couple of days. We get some warmer weather here coming up. Definitely by next week, I think they're going to be almost wide open. So
Yeah.
hopefully all this wind is about over with. It's been windier than I seem to remember, but it's you take it what each day gives you kind of thing. But it seems like it's been really windy, so I'm glad there's no really big pollen sources to get washed out or blown away right now.
That wind yesterday was insane.
Yeah.
Insane. I don't know where that came from, but that wind was crazy.
Yeah, it just kept going and big gusts, so I think the black locust bloom is delicate enough. A couple of days of really hard wind like that when it's
that would have destroyed it. No doubt. We wouldn't.
So
yeah.
Hopefully we get all the type of weather and storm fronts through, so we can have a good bloom this year.
It's still growing pretty good here, actually. And it really, like you said, it blowed a gale all day. I think that was the longest steady wind of that velocity that I.
Oh yeah.
In years.
It was like a constant gust. It was just that was what the wind was. And I had the windows open and our one screen, I guess the corner of it broke, so it wasn't staying in the window right. And every time that wind came through, it would blow the screen out of the window. I'm like, hey, Tom, our window screen's broke. We need to replace that. He's like, ah. But yeah, it was crazy. There was like that. We have those nasty Bradford pears in our front yard. So when that screen would gap a little bit, Bradford pear blooms would be blowing in the house from the window.
That's one pollen that really seemed to kind of bother me. It gets in my throat and just makes me hoarse. You know, it almost makes me lose my voice. But
yeah,
I don't get headache. It affects me.
Are you? Is your Bradford's full bloom, Melissa? Out there?
They just started blooming probably earlier this week, but yeah, they're bloomed out pretty well. I wouldn't say completely full bloomed, but they're bloomed out. But they could have been, and just all the blooms got blown off yesterday.
Yeah.
So they're bloomed out pretty well.
All of them out in this country.
Oh, I hate the smell of them. They're
not full bloom yet. They will be in the next day or two. They've all got blooms on them.
Yeah.
I've got red bud. I got forsythia. I've got my American elms are starting to bloom. My red maples are full bloom. I mean, there's red maples everywhere, you know. And the hen bed, I've got thousands of acres now of it. I haven't been out to the bee yard yesterday and today. It was just, well, I didn't get a chance today, of course, but yesterday it was just blowing so tremendously hard. I didn't want to bother anything. I just,
your bees would have just blown away. And the wind was blowing so hard they wouldn't have been able to fly back to their hive. I mean, it was crazy.
I was going through my inventory, and I'm short on bee boxes. I guess I'm going to be short the way things look of new stuff. So if I'm going to do some splitting, which it looks like I'm going to have to, well, I'm going to have some more boxes. I've got about all my boxes. It's a good problem to have, is about all full of, you know, drawn comb and stuff. And I'm trying to keep them using them for, you know, brood work. So I put 15 more together today, so I've got to get them. I torch them, of course, and then I dip them. So I got to get that done the next day or two. So hopefully, things will go well, and then we'll all end up having a good year. We'll see what happens. Time will tell. So.
Yeah, hopefully we just ease into a really nice nectar flow here, you know, and don't have too much extreme up and downs, and have more of a stable spring. But what's stable or normal, you know, anymore?
Yeah. It's it's looking semi. I'd like to see the nights be a little bit warmer, but we're just going to have to wait for time to take care of that part of it. So it is what it is. So 57 today, Friday, we're getting snow. Okay, Mike.
My extra weight just pulled up into the driveway.
So where is your worser half? He jumped ship on me again, did he? Huh?
No, he had to run it. So we were working on making those double screen boards that he wants to wax dip tomorrow. Yesterday, we dropped all the boards off at my parents' house, and our son Andrew, and then my dad drilled all used the drill press to drill all the holes in them. And so he went and picked them up today, and then me and him have been working on putting the shims around them. And then so they'll be ready to dip. And then his one friend that does the fabricating, he's going to see if he can get him to cut all the screen wire for him, so we don't have to sit there and manually cut it. And then at a later time, we'll just add that screen wire to the holes. So anyway, we've just finished that up, and then he had to go up to the shop because he's wax dipping tomorrow for personal stuff, and then Saturday for our club. So he had to go dig out the wax dipping tank and get that set up to be ready for tomorrow. So I'm doing that.
Oh, I thought this was the weekend y'all were going to Colorado.
That's next weekend.
Okay.
We leave on Thursday, yeah.
Well, that'll be a fun trip.
Yeah, that'll be good. I'm anxious. John Mitchell had with Westcliff had sent us a bunch of ideas for things to do while we're up there.
You better get in here and get sit down and get up with the program. I'm about
Jack in the day said I lost 150 pounds. Looked like I lost 150 pounds.
Shoot, I weigh more than that. Yeah. I haven't weighed 150 pounds since high school.
I wouldn't bet on that either.
Shoot, all that outside eating I do. What do you expect?
He said it was nice and quiet too.
Oh, yeah. Is that a good thing or bad thing?
They're being nice with 150.
Hey, Jack, today you're not going to offend me. I don't care. I'm not a woman. It doesn't bother me. You can call me 250 pounds. I don't care.
Hi, DC. How you doing? You getting any rain out there?
No, sir.
Well, it rained last
a
night.
little bit overnight from about midnight till 3, just barely enough to get the ground wet.
It was just spritzing here when I got up this morning, which was just about 3.
Yeah.
Actually, today was good weather, the whole deal. Everything went as planned and on time. That service that I went to lasted 27 minutes total.
Oh, yeah. Pretty short, huh?
Yeah, thank God. That's okay.
Well, those services are never that much fun to attend anyway, right?
No. We won't go into that on here, but it's I'm glad it's over.
Yes, sir.
Good deal. So what's the deal on Rick? Is his daughter got it in the track pretty stout? She don't get in till late, or
Tom said he believes so.
Pardon me?
Tom said he believes so.
Okay. Know what to do.
Hi, Brian. One more week, and we'll be seeing you.
Hey, so I just want to show you something, fella, that you didn't think that I would finish.
I was just telling him about it.
Well, if that's your Halloween mask, the eyes are too far apart. Fix your face. It looks good.
Yeah. How about that? The only thing I have left to do is a screen wire. But those are just like the one I had gotten 2 years ago off of Bob Benny. And then I bought a few off of Greg Burns at the
we can't say Greg Burns tonight. He's doing a live at the same time.
Okay.
We can't promote his name at all.
Okay. Well, Greg. Just Greg, I guess. Anyway, I actually don't have much money into these because that plywood I got, that 3/4 inch interior plywood I got full half sheets for $5 a piece. I think I got like 15 or 16, enough that I was able to cut 71 of these 8-frame boards out of, and then used a 3-inch hole saw. That was the same that Bob had used on his, and I got some 1x4s from the Menards the other day, and I just ripped them all down to 3/4 of an inch. So I was able to get 4 rips out of them. So pretty happy with that. But I have them all done. They're drying up now, getting ready for wax dipping tomorrow. Probably not until the afternoon. So did you get anything done today, Matt?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Building double screen boards and mating nukes. Basically doing that almost exact same thing. I don't know if I'm going to put all the 3/8 trim on the bottom. Are you going to add like a 3/8 rim on the bottom for the parent colony?
No, I'm going to leave it like that. I don't know. I figured the ones that Bob and Greg and all them made, they didn't have any rim on them, because if you think about it, on the tops of the frames on the parent colony, you'll have what I guess it's probably at 3/16 of an inch, maybe, maybe a little less. So no, I don't want to overcomplicate it, because these are only going to be on colonies for about 3 weeks ish, 4 weeks at a time. So I don't know. ideally I liked would have used a different material, but for $5 for a half sheet of 3/4 inch plywood, you can't say no to that. Even if I, if they're out in a bee yard for 2 months out of the entire year, these should, after being wax dipped, they should still last a long time,
Yeah.
But
I know double screen board has proved to be an extremely versatile tool. I mean, it's just, once you get used to using them, you find all kinds of uses for them, and
oh yeah,
from over winter to any kind of splits, especially early in the year, all our splits and the nukes we'll be selling off are going to be, pulled up on a double screen board,
Yeah, for sure.
We still have, what do we have?
Yeah, I wouldn't even mind, like JW had on his, he made his up to where he could put a 5-frame nuke over it. Yeah. Now, I think being wax dip, I won't have an actual lid that goes over that besides over the 5-frame nuke. But if they're wax dip, I don't know that I care,
Yeah.
But I could cut some more shims. I could cut some more shims to fit, in here, or offset it, off to one side, see what that looks like, and cut another shim or something.
You could actually cut another shim and put it in there and leave it permanently.
Yeah, I probably could. I probably could do another shim and leave it in there permanently if I wanted to, and then I could use it for an overwintering a 5-frame nuke,
Yeah, let me grab. I have a double 5-frame nuke. I'm going to grab. I'll show you.
Okay. Here, Russell asks you a question while he's grabbing that.
I'm sorry. Where's it at?
How long does it take to get your tank up to temp?
Russell, that's a good question. I will say it depends on what the ambient air temperature is outside. I don't remember what burner that my friend had fabricated underneath the bottom of it. I don't remember how many BTUs that was. It does pretty good, but most of the time when I'm wax dipping, it's usually in somewhat of the off season. And well, I take that back. We did do some dipping one year in the middle of summer.
Hot.
It was hot.
Was so miserable.
But so our overnight lows are going to be somewhere on the mid to upper 30s tonight. So I would imagine from a dead cold wax, a big block inside that 24 by 24 inch tank, it'll probably take at least a good 6 hours, if not 7 hours, to get fully up to temp. I like the burner that JW has underneath his tank. That thing has got, was it 3 or 4 burners under it?
4. Yeah.
4. I mean, that thing, once you start, you probably wanted to go slow a little bit and just get it slowly melting. And then once it gets melting, you could fire up additional burners under there or really crank the heat up to it.
A lot of times what he does is he'll start it the night before and there's cameras up at the shop and it's sitting on a asphalt pad. Yeah, thank you. There's cameras up there. It's on an asphalt pad and he has a thermometer in it. Did you put the thermometer in it that turns?
I haven't started it yet.
Oh, but anyway, so he can watch it throughout the night.
Yeah. So if anybody's ever heard of a fireboard, if anybody does smoking or cooks meats for long over time, there's a Wi-Fi thermometer called a fireboard. So if you're big into barbecuing, you probably heard that before. They actually work wirelessly and through Wi-Fi. So up at the shop, we have Wi-Fi up there. We can just plug this thing in, or it actually runs off of a battery too. You just drop your thermometer down inside the tank, and as soon as I can watch the temperature for it keeps track of it for hours too, however long it's on. It'll keep track of it from the time you started, the fluctuations in it. I can know exactly to the 0.1 what the temperature is on it, so I can pay attention with the cameras by looking at it and watching the ambient or the temperature inside there too. So that really helps me out whenever I'm not up there. But we kind of keep it out in the open near the salt bin, away from anything combustible, things like that. So, and luckily, I think our winds are dying down tonight. As a matter of fact, where they've been somewhat blustery today, JW.
Not as bad as yesterday, but they were
not as bad as yesterday. They were out here. I actually got home in time. I'm putting together 15 more deep high bodies. I got to looking through stuff, and like I just told folks, I thought I had enough, and then I got to looking at them. I've got a good problem. Most of the stuff I've got drawn out, so I'm trying to save that stuff and get some more stuff drawn out to use for brood. I don't want to try to use some of my drawn out stuff that I had used to get take honey out of in the past. I'm like, frames all honey frames instead of getting some brood in them. So
Yeah.
make some more.
Yes, sir.
More to spend that money. 5 pound box of screws. I screw all my stuff together.
Yeah.
Not me. I'm lazy.
5 pound box of screws, $32 at Lowe's. And that's with my veterans discount. Is that
That's
an
just-
awful?
Stuff's gotten expensive, hasn't it?
Goodness gracious. You know, Bracken was on. Did y'all see Bracken's little video, HDO?
I saw he posted something. We haven't watched it yet, though.
He
found the supply.
I'm sure you guys look around, you can find some of it, but it is expensive. I guess it's getting way outside. If he mentioned the price, I mentioned it. He just said really, really expensive. So I don't think he actually mentioned this. But he got from the 3/4. Which,
DC says, yeah, he was happy. His wallet was not.
Well, we talked about that before. You're up around, it was about 120 a sheet. But Matt, I had asked the lumber company out in Union, what's a pretty good size one.
Todd said 120.
I asked him about it, and he said to me, he goes, well, I'm sure we can get it. And he goes, but you'll have to buy a whole bunk. And I said, I'm not buying 60 sheets. I'm not coming out of pocket with $8,000.
yeah.
And he goes, yeah, that's probably the only way we'll bring it in. And he said, we're probably one of the largest lumber yards here out in Franklin County. And I said, yeah, I know. And I said, he goes, you probably have to go to St. Louis to get it. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of figured, but I said, I thought I would ask out here to you all, if you did carry it or you can get in just, a dozen or 15 sheets, that would be more appropriate for what we were looking for at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if we had a means to move it, then it would be fine to buy 60 sheets and then, but I'm not going to try to sit on $7,000 or $8,000 to move it over the course of 5 or 10 years. That's not going to happen. So,
DC, I'm not trying to be argumentative with you, but I don't like the MDO at all. I've tried some of it, and it just doesn't work for me at all. I'm telling you. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you, JW. I don't think it's as superior or equal to the HDO. There's definitely something to be said for the HDO material, because I do have MDO out in my feeder boxes, and although it seemed to be doing pretty good, I don't think I would trust it long term, as far as that goes, not without some protection on the outside.
I've got some I just used one season last summer, and it's starting to break
Did
loose.
you wax dip those boxes with the MDO?
No, I don't think so.
It's not really comparative.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it'll show up in the price too, because I think that MDO was somewhere around $70 something for a 4x8 sheet of 3/4, and then you got up to the HDO. And again, the last I had looked and checked, and speaking with JW, you were up around 120 a sheet for HDO.
Yeah, that's the last time I got it priced, it was in the mid 140s, and that was buying a bunk.
Yeah,
Buying a pallet.
Yep.
Oh.
Buy a bunk of it. That's the only way to get that price that low. They just don't stock it that much, so it's.
Well, I had the last I got last fall, but I just got 1/2 inch. I didn't get 3/4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The last 3/4 I actually got off of Bob Benny last spring. So I've used all it up but a 1/2 sheet. But for my purposes, I like the 1/2 inch better than the 3/4 for what I use it for.
Yeah. So DC had a comment earlier up, and I failed to address it. He mentioned something about if I was to repurpose where did it go? Repurpose a commercial burner. Something about a multi-burner or a commercial burner. Yeah, DC, I think you're absolutely right. I should try to figure out to get a hold of one, and then I could have my friend fabricate the brackets for the bottom of the tank so I could have that mounted underneath there. But ideally, that's what I'd like to do, I guess. The only problem is I usually use this once a year, to dip a handful of things and I'm done. So it's hard for me to justify spending a whole lot of time on it. But you're absolutely right. That's kind of what JW had, was a commercial burner under his, and his was I like it. It's if you want to get it up to heat and get it going good, that's ideal. And then
boiler burner that I use, Tom, and that thing's probably older than you and Matt put together.
is that right? Yeah, it looked like it was had seen some days.
Yeah, that thing's old, but it's sure been a good one for me. That thing's burnt for me probably 1,000 hours.
Yeah. Hey Matt, next time we go over to the dirty side of the river, we're going to have to go there with a ratchet or an angle grinder and cut that beauty off the bottom of that tank.
Yeah, you got that right. No, he probably wouldn't even notice.
They're separated. It's on a stand. That stand on that tank's just sitting on top of that burner. It's completely separate from that tank.
Oh, it is. Oh,
yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Well, shoot, you shouldn't have told me that. It's gonna wind up over here on the west side of the river.
It may anyway.
No, I'm just messing.
Did you see the Edwards honeybees?
Yeah, so Edwards honeybees had asked, Tom, I heard you mentioned losing some nukes. I lost 7 out of 8. I assume it was starvation, but some still had some stores. No losses with the production hives. What do you think? So Edward, I can only tell you my experience here. Almost all of the loss that I did finally add up everything that I had, and I'm at a 30% loss. That's the biggest loss that I've encountered in the last 7 years of beekeeping that I've had. I will say that I will take a lot of blame for that. A couple of things.
Most of that loss is because of the nuke yard, though.
Yes, and I haven't pulled the numbers out. That's entirety for all nukes, double nukes, production colonies, and the whole 9 yards. That's everything. Now, if I take the nucleus colonies out of there, I bet you my loss rate is probably somewhere about 10%. Because most of the loss I had, and I had a lot of nucleus colonies out there, a lot of single 5s, a lot of 5/5s, and a lot of triple 5s even. And it got to be late in the year, and I never moved them out of the triple 5s. And I thought, you know what, they'll do better in those triple 5s than they would double deep 8. So anyway, I feel like where I went wrong is a couple of areas. I feel like that because when our dearth hit last summer, it hit hard. And I mean, it was just dry. Like I know there wasn't even a drop of rain for 5 weeks straight. And some of the rain we got after that was kind of menial. It just wasn't all that productive. But I think that if I would have continued to feed those smaller nukes and not relied on what I thought Mother Nature might have done for me, those nukes could have built the population of bees that they needed to overwinter. Because here in Missouri, we had a harsh winter. I mean, the entire month of January had snow on the ground from January 4th all the way through the end. And actually, when we got that next bout of snow, which I think was the beginning of February, there were still piles of snow on the parking lots where I pushed it to. So even though most of the ground had thawed out or had melted off, a lot of these piles were still there. And then we went right back into a cold snap for, I think it was about another 2.5, 3 weeks. So, and that pushed some of the additional ones over the edge at that point. So I believe had I built those nukes a little bit, kept them a little bit better fed, they could have built the numbers to overwinter a little bit of a harsher winter. But I could also say if we didn't have a harsh winter, they may have been fine too. I did have food stores in them because some of the bees were robbing them out later. So I'll take the blame on that, just operator error on my behalf and being a little bit complacent with that. All of my production colonies and double deeps, I barely lost any of them. Those all looked beautiful, and I'm very, very happy with myself on that regard. So, you win some, you lose some. We can't always predict what the weather's going to do more than 2 weeks out, and we just kind of do the best we can and move on. I'm not happy about my loss, but it is here, and I'll have to make the best of it, I guess. So I think we come out of winter with 107 colonies, went in with somewhere about 150 or a little less, I think it was.
That's plenty of assets to play with,
Oh, definitely.
Well, that's one thing that I've been telling Tom is like, even when you have a significant loss, the more hives you have, the easier it is to make that back up in the spring. If we have 150 hives and we lose even 50%, we've still got 75 hives. If you have 4 hives in your backyard, you lose 50, say 2 hives in your backyard, you lose 50%. You've got 1 hive left. It's just, and one hive's easy to replace, but it's just, it's just easier to make up your losses when you have more to play with, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting. We were about the 10% loss, over winter this year. And what I noticed was anything mated after, and all our queens were mated this past year, so anything that we grafted went mated. Anything after about June 15th, or I guess right at about the start of the dearth, anything from that point forward would have been in that 10% loss category. Everything else, pre-spring, all of that during the honey flow, all made it. I mean, solid. It's interesting to see, what kind of may have went on there. Maybe lesser mating percentage, as far as quality. But overall, our bees are doing pretty good. You can definitely tell the Italian bases versus, the Carniolan and some of our Caucasian colonies. We only have about 4 of those, but there's noticeable differences in the different makeups of those queens, right now for sure, in their build up. So
yeah, definitely. Do you notice that those Caucasians and Carniolans need a little bit more stimulation before they really start to crank into that overdrive gear?
Caucasians are an interesting bee. I find them I kind of lean towards that spectrum than I would an Italian myself, or at least a Carniolan.
Mm-hmm.
Caucasians are they're very concentrated on what they're doing. They fly in a lot cooler weather. Heck, I've even been down there in a not a rain, but not a mist, and they're coming and going like it's not even, like they can kill us. So
yeah,
I'm not saying they fly in a downpour or anything like that, but they're pretty focused.
Answer DC's question here, Matt, not to interrupt you. DC, Matt might be more of an expert on that than I am. I can tell you this about the the soda-based treatment on that. I make all my hive stands out of the pressure treated, and I've done it for several years, and I've never had a bit of trouble bothering the bees. I don't think it's going to bother them. I wouldn't want to probably build hives out of them, but I don't think it'll have any toxic effect on the bees whatsoever. But I'm just telling you my opinion.
Yeah, I build all my hive stands out of pressure treated lumber, and none of my equipment is specifically, but I haven't noticed anything that I would say seem like it's off.
Yeah, all my 4x4 posts on top of the cinder blocks are all pressure treated 4x. I don't have anything that's in touch with the bees that's actually pressure treated material. That's all pine or cedar.
DC said he was wondering about the bottom board for no rotting. That's a really good question, DC. I honestly couldn't answer that with an educated answer myself. I could make an assumption and say I would assume that it probably would have zero issue or very little, or anything that you would notice, I would say. But
I don't think it'd be worth my honest opinion is if you're going to build them yourself, you probably don't want to go that route. But that HDL makes wonderful bottom board also, but it's quite expensive. I don't know that it'd make that much difference being in my area touching the ground, or whether it would make that much difference over just a good quality fur or something for your bottom board pieces.
Peabody says he knows a guy that runs all treated on the bottom, and then Mark Miller says his bottoms are treated. So
I'd rather have cypress for bottom board if you can get it. So
yeah, I definitely agree with that. Cypress will cost you a little bit more, but I think for the money, I think it's well worth the effort. Let me ask you guys a question. So between bottom boards, say your lids and boxes, what do you think always seems to rot out first?
I would have, I don't know. I would say lids.
What's your thought, JW?
I don't know. I don't really, you know, and these people go think I'm crazy. You know, I don't keep many boxes over 5 years, so I don't. Haven't done it for a long time. I just so it's really not an issue in my world. Never paid that much attention, and I do wax dip everything, so I've never found it to be an issue. So I just don't have a lot of rot in my stuff.
So Mark Miller on here, he says bottoms, exclamation point, exclamation point. I actually agree with that. I think it's the bottoms. I've never had any issues with the lids and such. It seems like the bottoms always tend to get a little bit, those joints get a little bit more loose. And I will preface this with saying I've predominantly got screen bottom boards, and I bet you'll probably have better luck for longevity with a solid bottom board when it comes to just overall robust. You know, there's a lot of parts on those screen bottom boards, you know, and they're basically only fastened at the corners, and you have hardware cloth that kind of connects them all. So they're probably a little more fragile than the others.
See, I would agree with the bottom boards, but I think too, like if you're not wax dipping your boxes and you're just painting them, I would think you'd have box rot faster, because when you're shoving your hive tool in there, you're constantly weakening the corners and scraping the paint off the corners and widening those or whatnot, that you're going to start getting rot in the corners easy.
That's just because she tears the boxes up when she gets into them with her hive tool.
Well, maybe it's me, but sometimes I'll watch a video and the way they just get into those boxes, I was like, oh my gosh, oh.
You're cringing, right?
I treat mine with a little bit of gentleness, you know.
There have been plenty of boxes that if I had a hammer, I would put my hive tool on there.
Yeah.
And click, click.
Yeah. You know, you have a couple of those hives that get a little fiery, and she sticks her hive tool in, and she's going, wham, wham. And I'm like, you are literally ticking off the entire yard right now. Stop it. You got to wiggle it in there and then give a little pry, you know? It's
right.
Sometimes you can't even get it in there, though. It's impossible.
Yeah, sometimes you got to pry on it. There's no doubt. But
I'm just a fill-in guy.
No, you're the main event, buddy.
I'm just a fill-in for Ricky when he can't make it. He's got kids in school and playing sports.
Hey, Matt, did JW make you an admin on the site?
I don't believe so. I don't know. Yeah. I don't see the chat.
No, he didn't. He didn't make me an admin either, man. I can't do anything cool on here. I don't have any controls.
I don't know how to do that stuff, my friend.
Oh, I thought he just didn't like me.
All I've got on mine is StreamYard. I don't have any of those, you know, like where the statistic shows up. That's to my benefit, probably, because if I see no more than it showed up, I'd probably just end the stream anyway.
What? You have 22 followers watching this shenanigan party right now.
Wow, that's awesome, JW.
And if anybody would like to join, the link is at the very top of the chat.
Yeah.
Come on in. We'll talk about what everybody wants to talk about, except politics and religion.
Yep.
We're not doing that.
Tom, I'll show you that the little double mating nuke I was making.
Oh yeah.
This is actually one I made last year. It just ready to go right on top of the hive.
Oh yeah, okay. I see you've got the
it's got the little board that's stapled on.
Yep.
Real solid.
Oh heck yeah.
3/8. You see that cedar spacer?
I do. Yeah.
So got that 3/8 spacer.
Now, what do you got? I'm assuming you got that screen on. Your screen down there at the bottom is on the top of that, or the inside the box. Then is that correct?
Yeah, it's on inside and bottom. So they got 3/4 separation.
Yeah.
And that little cleat that runs down the middle there just accepts that
Slider.
masonite piece is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, Matt. That was good.
But that's what I overwintered those last mated queens over the triple stack of double screen boards. It seemed to work really well. You know, the heat definitely exchanged, you know, just fine for them. So far so good with them. I haven't moved them out of there. I just did pull that divider, so gave them a little more space because they were needing it.
He's driving. Todd's not home. He commented earlier.
Oh, Todd, I just sent you a message. Melissa just told me that you're driving. Matt, I like what you did there. So you made basically 2 5-framers is what you did, and you left a big opening in the center so they can get that heat transfer.
Yeah. So I cut that really just with the circ saw, just because I didn't want to drill the 2 holes. And for me, it's faster to cut a square out with a circ saw, and just kind of slightly overcutting it. And
yeah.
But yeah, so it just that way it had ample heat exchange, and I wasn't just dependent on the 2 holes because I had that middle divider.
Hey, hold that thing up again. What did you do? And let me see. What did you do in the bottom of that? I see you got was it a cedar furring strip down there with a little groove cut in it?
Yeah, it just
okay.
So it accepts I can't reach it from here, but it accepts it on both sides. Just like
so that that'll keep any crossover from happening from colony to colony.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And it's tight on top too.
Yep, I like that. That's perfect. I'm thinking about it. If I tried to make something like that for mine, I could do it. But the one problem is using 8-frame equipment, I only get 4 and 4.
Yeah.
I don't get a full-on nuke size,
So
Which actually that would be fine, because if you're going to pull them out and put them in a nuke, you put an empty drawn frame in there anyway for her to start laying.
Yeah.
4 on 4 would be fine.
So for overwintered, I wanted to make them a nice tight 5-frame, and you have enough room in there to manipulate 5 frames, so it sits almost perfect for what I was using it for. So I noticed they propolized that little card or that insert in there perfect. I mean, there was no transfer from one to the other. It was pretty solid fit. So
what are you using for a divider? Like a piece of 1/4-inch masonite?
Masonite is what he said.
Okay. Yeah, masonite.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know if I have any of those right here, but
so that's actually what.
I got him, Tom Mack. I got to keep him on a short leash.
That's what Chris Warner uses, Matt. He uses a groove inside his boxes like that. I think he'll actually make three framers.
You can see how thin that is. I mean, that's 1/8 inch maybe.
Oh, that's yeah.
So thin we can barely see it.
Okay.
Yeah. And it just barely has enough of an ear.
What do you think, buddy?
To where it's cut tight.
Yep.
That's all those people up there, huh?
And then on the top, I just have I either use window screen or some sort of way to make a tight gasket. Reflectix works really good for it too.
Yeah.
Got to make sure they can't get up and over the top.
Yeah, I have a couple different things I think I'm going to try out for winter. One is the method that you use with the 1.5-inch foil sided insulation board. You said that's an R6?
No, yeah, it is 6 point something. Yep.
Okay.
0.3, I think, per inch.
Yep.
Yeah, that seemed to work really well, for what we're using. And another interesting thing that I noticed on those, on the 2 front holes right here, they're just, 10 inches apart, maybe.
Yeah.
I would notice those different colonies and either the guard bees or they would walk from the entrances over and greet each other, like knowing each other's there, almost go over to the other entrance and walk right back, with no fighting. Not once did I ever see one of those colonies get after each other, even though they had 2 mated queens that were just coming back and starting to lay, So really, really interesting how they kind of work in sync, kind of. Even though
for sure.
they're working completely different or separate, it's almost like they know that they're somehow stronger together, fighting off maybe potential robbers or what have you. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that 3/8 entrance too. When it comes to that, keeping it small for those nukes, I think it's ideal.
Yeah.
I didn't do that on mine here because I was, being a little lazy. But I would say ideally, I think that 3/8 or 5/16 entrance is perfect. A 3/4 really, it's too tall. It doesn't make any sense to have it other than just working with dimensional lumber.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I say. Is that 3/4? You got them 3/4 shimmed?
Yeah. Yep.
I might suggest that you might want to cut them down a little bit, maybe.
Well, here's the reason why I left it like that, because if I have any queen cells potentially that I move over that are hanging down, I don't want to smash them. I want to leave plenty of room for them hanging down inside that. That was the idea in which I left it.
No.
Hey, looks like Michael Maharv, 21st B, is in here.
Mhm.
He said he was watching the Hive Alive stream thing with Greg and then jumped ship once he realized we were on. There it is. JW-Soapstone. He's the famous guy.
Yeah.
Place to be. It's where all the cool kids hang out.
He's basically Matt and I's hero.
Yeah, he is.
You guys. Hey, Stephen Rogers. I don't believe I know you, buddy. Where are you from?
We got a lot of the regulars in here. Tom Mack, Peabody, Tritone. Of course,
Dodd.
DC, Dodd,
Carl.
Koopman. Todd is in here a little bit. Mark Miller. Who else?
21st Bees. How's production going with the frames? How's that going for you?
I'm sure he's been working his tail off.
Well, he says he's in a hotel room again, so I guess he has a conference this weekend.
Yeah, I thought he made a post about that. Now that I'm selling bee stuff, I have to keep my comments on their streams censored. You have to watch your tongue, huh, Michael? You have to be PR, right? You got to keep that public relations.
Mhm.
I know today's probably the first day where I really felt that.
Okay, just a different channel. Homestead Avenger. Okay, got you, buddy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't realize that was him too.
Well,
Just leave. Well,
you have to be like Charlie. Them older guys, they make a list where everybody's from, like where they can read it.
Yeah.
Us young guys, we don't have to do stuff like that. I'll remember that now till at least
That's right.
5
Hey,
minutes before.
There's no gray hair in this chat tonight, is there?
No, not here either.
I got made young about a week or so ago.
Oh,
so,
you did?
Yeah.
Well, mine's not gray. Mine's white. What's left?
So when it goes to white, does that mean you've graduated? Does that mean you've hit the pinnacle?
I've been almost white all my life, so it's no big change for me.
Mhm.
My dad was totally white-headed, so I was told. When he was 27, for the rest of his life, he lived to 94. So I never knew him when he wasn't totally white-headed.
Yeah, that's interesting. My grandfather was the same way, just white as can be, but had a head full of hair when he passed away.
Yeah, you will. Them teenage girls will give you gray hair.
That is no doubt. I only have one, so and she's now married, so she's technically not my issue anymore. That would be her husband's. So Peabody says he has some bad news. He's out of drawn comb already. He runs singles this spring, and it'll be interesting. Yeah, Peabody, you've probably heard us talk about it before in the past, but I tell you, if you can sacrifice a little bit of the production of honey production in any of these colonies to draw some comb, I promise you it'll be worth it. I mean, obviously you got to, kind of, weigh out the pros and cons there, but having that drawn comb, I've got a lot of good drawn comb this year, and I'm in a pretty good spot because we're planning on selling as many as 100 nukes. So I'll have to replace a lot of comb this year, which is fine. We'll be in good shape doing so. But
looks like Michael's like barely being able to keep up with the inventory. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, definitely.
Good job. Looking for dealers. So if anybody has a bee shop in their area,
yep,
let them know about Michael and 21st Bee.
Yeah, you should check out 21st Bee's website. I don't know what it is, Michael. Well, you probably won't be able to drop it in the link, will you? Those are some heavy duty frames. I'll tell you that.
Plastic frames. They'll kind of, you'll feel the flex in them.
Yeah,
I don't think you're going to feel any flex in them.
Oh, there's no flex in those frames at all.
Honestly, when it comes to a plastic frame, that was the one thing that always griped me a little bit. I never had a lot of. I run primarily the wooden frame with the plastic foundation. But but the thing is, you get one of those plastic frames, and I'm not going to pick on any one individual. You get one of those plastic frames, and it's fully capped out with honey, and you pick it up, that thing will twist on you just under the weight of itself pretty good, I'm not saying good or bad. Some people may not care. It's one of those things, I guess. But
well, how much are you selling nukes for? In our area in St. Louis, we're selling them for $200.
Yep.
But they've been Isabees is selling them for more than that though, like
as a standard, I would say 200 is a very fair deal. You'll see if some people sell them a little more. Occasionally, you're finding some people sell them a little bit less. But I would say 200 is pretty much in the St. Louis area and probably most of Missouri. That's pretty standard as far as the price. Now, when you get to an overwintered nuke with a late season queen from the previous year, 225, 235. I let go of a few, but I'm mainly hanging on to those that I've got. Of the ones that I have left.
They keep the box, but if they're not going to use it, we ask them to return it.
Yeah, that's built into my price.
They keep it.
Of course, thanks for tuning in, buddy. Appreciate it. I'm trying to keep these Western dirty side guys under control.
So Michael says down in Arkansas, they're going to start swarming in about a week.
Wow.
You're a couple weeks ahead of us, I think.
Maybe not quite that. I would say maybe a good solid 10 days or so. We're just now having red buds starting to bloom up here. The Bradford pears or the pear trees, those started blooming here 3 days ago now.
They are full here. They're pretty well full here.
Yeah. I'm even seeing some of the actual fruit-bearing pear trees bloom out because I was at a customer's house just the other day in Labadie, but probably a half mile from where that tornado went through, and we were doing some dirt work and tearing some trees out. And him and I drove underneath the power line cut where he's got a whole bunch of different fruit trees and a couple different species of pear that he have there. They were like full bloom and white. He said the name of them. I don't recall what they were, but when you looked up, you got underneath of them. I love to get underneath one of those big flowering trees and you just
hear the buzz.
Dead silence. You get under, all you hear is a hum about the tree. Mm-hmm. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Steve, I might come to Sardis for some good fishing, but I'm not interested in driving down there for a swarm.
Your fruiting pear is starting to bloom now. Have you ever tasted the nectar out of a pear tree? Like you were checking your bees and saw they were storing nectar and tasted it like specifically from pear trees? It is so good. We have a 1 yard that is his friend's house. This was a couple years ago, and we were in it, and it was really, really light nectar. And he's like, taste this. And I'm like, it tasted really fruity, but I couldn't place it. I'm like, it kind of tastes like apple, but like there's no apple trees around that I knew of. So Wes come up and I'm like, do you have any fruit trees around here? He's like, yeah, I have some pear trees over there in the backyard. That honey tasted so good. It was really good.
He doesn't have that many, so I don't think he got that much.
No, we wouldn't have been able to get a crop off of it, but we just like happened to be in the bee yard at the right time to be able to taste that specific honey. It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit too high out there, Brian, on those nukes. I'll have to trade you for I'll have to trade you in a bill cap on one up. I got this. I'm supposed to get this pretty fancy bill cap, but I'm going to be willing to trade in.
Hey Brian, if you're not busy, come in here. I got some questions I want to ask you.
So DC said hawthorn tastes like cotton candy. You know what hawthorn?
No kidding.
DC, I'm wondering if we got some of that like last year, the year before, because remember we had those few frames. I'm like, this kind of tastes like cotton candy. So I wonder if that's what that is. Interesting.
I'd like to have some of it.
Mm-hmm. And it was super light. Is hawthorn super light?
But just leave your veil off for Mike. Melissa's trying to get you in trouble.
Yes, she is.
Huh?
Yeah, she does that to me all the time too. Leave it up to those ladies and get us all messed up.
I sure not to dunk my tongue into a brain.
Hey, Michael, there's nothing wrong.
That'd be a really messy way to taste the nectar or the honey.
Just take a bite out of the frame.
Just take a whole frame in.
So let me ask you this. I was going to ask Brian or any of the guys in here that sell the nukes. Do you guys, okay, so like Cody Walker says he sells them at 200 this year. He went up a little bit. I think that's more than reasonable, especially when you consider the cost that you might have in it. Now, depending on how many you buy or how many you don't, you'll have it, say 10 to 20 bucks in your box, depending on what type of pro nuke, Jester, whatever you're using for that. You're going to have, depending on how many queens you're buying, you could have anywhere from, say, 25, 30 bucks on probably the minimum on a mated queen, all the way up to potentially as much as $50, right? On that. So, and then you have to think about too, all the drawn comb that you're placing inside there, plus your time, and then also how much you're feeding them. My plan and goal would be to not have to feed much more than 2 gallons to a nuke that's growing. So my plan is to build them on the first week of April and have them ready to go at the very end of April. So it'll be about a 3-week turnaround. Now these are well-mated queens that have already been laying. They'll have been laying for a solid 3 to 4 weeks actually before I take possession of them.
Thanks, DC.
So.
Are you going to do all these?
Compared to normal.
Oh, your nuke building at your shop, or where you do it at?
I'm going to do it in the B yards, and I'm going to do it over a double screen board.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a small little comparison this year. I built 71. So I have 71 of those I built, and I already had 6 others. One I got from Bob Benny 2 years ago, and I bought 5 off of Greg at the expo. So I'll have 76, and my plan is to build 100 on the first round. So what I'm going to do then is if I have 76, so the difference of 24 of those that I build will not be over a double screen board. So I'm going to watch the clear difference between the two, and if some of them are behind by say a week or so, because my expectation is, because if they don't have to thermoregulate as much, they'll need those other bees can maybe graduate out to be foragers, or repurpose the duties inside the hive rather than just trying to keep the brood warm. So I'm thinking that it'll maybe bump them as much as 5 to 7 days, hopefully. So I'm going to do a comparison and contrast on that and see if that's actually what my theory is. Maybe it won't make any difference at all. I don't know, but I'm definitely going to play around with those. And then I think on the second round I'll do some of those as well, because the second round I'm planning on doing those going to be to repopulate any of the holes that I have in my operation.
So Cody asked, are we behind our normal this?
Yeah.
So I think we're probably like a week behind. I think last year we were super early.
Yep.
And so it seems like we're really far behind this year, but we're not. I think we're maybe like a week behind though.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Over the last 2 years in my house, I keep records, written records, all that stuff.
So how far are you behind this year?
17 days.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. That's
a little over 2 weeks.
Do you feel like the last?
Other than that, I'm talking about the 2 previous years of this.
Yeah,
Brian, it's pinned at the top. If not, let me know and I'll send it to you.
So I was just going to ask you, JW, the last 2 years for us were early, and I would say significant, at least probably 10 to 14 days. And that's just trying to go by memory. I didn't write anything down specifically, so it could be a little bit off from that. But I feel like at least a good 10, if not probably more like 14 days. The last 2 seasons we were ahead of what would be somewhat normal. And I think this year, I feel like we got back to somewhat of what I would say, quote unquote, normal as far as the season is progressing, which honestly, I'm actually kind of okay with, because if we can get a little bit closer through the months where we don't have any of those real hard freezes that kill off, say, like, the blooms on the fruit bearing trees or the blooms on the black locust for us primarily, because I know Matt and I can both get black locust. I don't remember if JW, if you said you had a lot over there by you or not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I really like that honey. That's some really good stuff. Probably one of my favorite.
Yeah. Well, my theory on honey, it is just whatever the bees bring in. I don't keep track of all that stuff, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you get a Duke's mixture. There's no place in our part of the country that you're going to get a solid nectar flow from one source with the bees. They're going to find other stuff to mix in with it. So
Yeah, definitely.
it's going to be primarily if you have it tested. I've never had any honey tested and know for sure what it is, but
I haven't either, but I'll tell you the last 2 years, the curiosity has been getting the best of me. And I mentioned to Melissa, I'm like, I want to have our honey tested. She goes, why? She goes, we're already, 3/4 of the way through it or what have you. So I'm like, yeah, it probably doesn't make sense to do that. But I'm like, this next year after we get it and harvest it, I am going to send off some samples because I want to know for my own curiosity what it's going to be. I think those tests run about $90, and there's a few different places you can send them to with about a 2-week turnaround.
I'm going to step away here just a minute. I got to let my little dog out.
All right.
These-
We'll go ahead and carry your crowd for you.
Yep.
Hey, if anybody wants to jump in, if you go to the top of the comment section up there, the link's up there. Come on in.
Yeah, I'm excited. It seems like today it was really kind of like the first day I've had to push myself as far as time and, like trying to get so many things built before a certain time. And, thinking about all this time I had over winter that I didn't take advantage of, that's what I'm.
Mm-hmm. I know. Same here, man.
What am I rushing today for? This is nothing. I had this done months ago.
Yeah. Man, I feel the exact same way. I felt like I just drug my feet on a couple of things but you know what? It was so doggone cold outside. It's just hard for me to motivate to do that stuff outside,
Oh yeah.
If I didn't have pressing work that I needed to do or for a customer or things like that, especially January, it was just downright cold. I mean,
it was
horrible.
Russell, the link should be right completely at the top of the chat.
It is.
The very first comment. The link should be there. I may mess this up. I can try to repost it again in the comments.
Yeah, try to repost it again. I did Facebook message it to Brian, so he should be able to get it either way.
Like I said,
If anybody else wants it,
it's been. Thank you. In case I messed this up, I'm gonna close out the stream. Everybody, thanks for coming on. I'm gonna try to post it again, Russell. We'll see what happens.
basically everybody hold on to your horses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So DC said something about getting a pretty straight blackberry, not much else blooming. Then I think Matt's actually pulled out in one yard. He has some pretty good blackberry that I've tasted, and it's got a really good and distinct aftertaste to it.
Yeah, it's for an old farmer named James. And he's got I don't know, maybe it's 3 or 4 acres of heirloom blackberries that he's grown for years and years and years. So. Bees, like JW saying, they're mixing it with other things, but it's the hives are, within 50 yards of this kind of, we'll call it a vineyard, I guess, almost a blackberry patch. And it's significant enough to where you can definitely pick up those notes. It's more of a tart, tart honey to it.
Yeah.
You taste that blackberry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty good though. I enjoyed that.
Thank you.
The bees did a good job, Matt.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I'm actually going to be putting about a dozen hives there. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I haven't really searched it out like I wanted to, but I wanted to do some research and talk with some people that have some apple orchards out near me and talk to them about doing that. Even if it didn't happen this year, try to get my understanding about how that's going to look, for what, from the orchard masters, what they spray, what they do. What's basically what I'm worried about is what is happening at the time of bloom, and potentially start setting myself up for that if I can make that happen. But, basically more of a local migratory event for me, somewhat the semi-local, nothing more than an hour or so from where I'm going to be at. But I don't know. We'll see. I'll figure something out and probably make something happen. Yeah.
So we do have a smaller yard that's set up at a winery, and those hives, they overwintered okay. They did good. I had 6.
Good job, JW.
It's at the bottom. The link's at the bottom now, folks.
Good job, buddy.
Sorry, Matt.
I am hesitant
Hello.
enough to add more hives there just because of the way that they spray. You know, so far so good, but I'm not going to try to push my luck and increase my hive number there just to limit my potential loss. You know, in that sense. But yeah, I know from my research and knowing what they spray, it is nothing good for bees. I mean, nothing. No. The first thing you see on that research, you know, would tell you don't put your bees here. You know, but that's the paying customer, and they, you know, it's in the contract that they're buying the hives, and they're still my hives, my maintenance to it. But I would caution anybody on the winery aspect. It's not, you know, they hit the clover and a lot of the weeds in the actual vineyard where the vines are growing, you know, for the grapes. So they're all in that area of potential spray, you know, with those. They come through with what's called a power sprayer, and they just fogs it behind there, you know, so you can imagine.
Isn't it a big machine that drives over the top of the row and it sprays in from each side?
JW, Brian's backstage. You got to add him to stage.
Look at the bottom.
Oh, I got you.
He needs to make. We need to figure out how to make us amends so we can help out with that.
Well, it comes up here behind mine. All
So,
right.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
said something about ample and nectar.
I got 2 pigeons. There's one of them.
Well, there he is. Look at this guy.
I get this other pigeon.
Look at this. Who else?
Hey,
Mark.
Hey.
What's up, buddy?
Look what the wind blew in.
They've probably been backstage for 20 minutes now.
Oh,
I was having problems. I could find the link on my phone at the top of the pin, but not on my computer. My computer wouldn't scroll all the way to the top.
I see.
So it took me that long to figure out how to get the link from my phone to email it to myself to then open it up on my computer.
Well, I sent it to you on Messenger too. So
That's what I was doing, but that was on my phone. Oh, I could have
Oh,
opened that up on my
yeah.
computer. I'm realizing now.
yeah, that's funny.
Hey, Mark.
How you doing, Brian?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Been fighting the wind all week.
Oh, I
I
bet.
bet you have. I bet that's been lots of fun.
It's
Especially
been
you
a
running-
lot of fun,
Yeah.
believe me.
How many times you had that 18-wheeler on 9 of those wheels?
All the way across 412 yesterday.
Shoot. No thanks, man.
It was a dust bowl. You couldn't even hardly see the road.
wow.
Now,
Where they
where does 412 run? Help me out. Understand where that's at.
It goes pretty much from Dyersburg all the way to, what is that? Where Walmart is over in Arkansas.
Bentonville.
Bentonville.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, Fayetteville. It comes out of what is that? Springdale. Comes out of Springdale. It goes across the Delta over there for miles, and where they've been tilling that ground up over there, and that dust got stirred up.
I bet it is. That may be where ours coming from. It looks like I had heard it was coming from Texas, but it may be coming from over there.
I got home and looked it up on the satellite, and you could see the dust from the satellite view.
Oh,
Yeah, all that dirt and debris was being settled in and around Missouri too, because the cars were absolutely just like that red clay dirt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was very interesting coming home empty yesterday.
I bet. Probably tossing that thing around a little bit,
yeah,
right?
that'd be worse than loaded, I imagine.
Yeah,
Like a
but I
big-
made it.
That's good. Hey, so question. I
Wait,
want to ask you.
Let Matt finish telling this
Oh,
story.
I'm sorry, Matt. You had something to finish up with?
The
orchard.
I got so distracted by all this new company to talk to. You know, I was talking about.
Well, I wanted to ask these guys about nukes.
Well, let Matt finish the story.
He said he forgot.
Yeah,
You didn't hear him?
it's gone.
It's gone. Hey, we can resurrect it here in a few minutes when we come back across it again.
Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to keep everybody on track.
No, I appreciate that, though, Melissa. Thank you.
So,
All right.
what's your question about nukes?
Well, so tell me your process, I guess, if you will. Do you have a specific process you like? You still trial and error in things?
Yeah, I'm going to try to do it a little differently this year. In the past, what I've done as far as making nukes is just pulling 3-frame nukes, two foods in a brood, feed them up, do them as early in the spring as I can, but not too early to fight the weather. I'm fighting nukes and packages that are coming in from out of state. So I'm trying to get my nukes to customers as early as possible because of that competition. So I'm pulling and just essentially walk away splits, 3 frames, letting that going back a couple days later, cutting back queen cells, feeding them throughout that process. I put a date on my lid, do not open until 3 weeks after the date of emergence for that queen.
Yeah.
My experience has also been my first round of nukes can take about a week or two longer than the math says in the book because of, I think, a lot of temperature fluctuations. You get a lot of open up the lid. It looks like they're prepping for a queen that's laying. They're like polishing the brood chamber, but you don't see eggs yet. In that situation, I just put the lid back on and I say, come back in 1 week. And again, I'm putting the date back on just so that sense of curiosity doesn't get the best of me.
Yeah.
This year, I'd like to get started on my queen rearing right off the bat. So pull those 3-frame nukes, and then 4 or 5 days later, go back, cut back queen cells, and drop a queen cell in.
Okay.
If that doesn't happen with my first round, that'll definitely happen with my second round. But that's my goal from there. My first set of nukes are for my customers, and then everything else is just starting to prepare for next year.
Yeah. So you're going to be building all your nukes with a queen cell then. Is that how I understand that?
Yes, that's my goal this year. Yep.
Okay.
Dropping in a queen cell.
Yeah. Yep. Well, hopefully Mr. Mark down there south of us, when maybe we'll make a way to have him head up this way. If he delivers a queen, I'm going to have him bring up an order of some queen cells, and we'll make another round of splits up here. And that'll probably be for our own increase, which probably won't be until sometime in May. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, it'd probably be mid-May, I imagine. My bees are still way behind, seems like to me. Of course, last year was really warm.
Yeah.
They were way ahead last year. So it just seems like they're so far behind, but I know they're not really. Yes. I hadn't started grafting yet, but they're real close to telling me it's time. I don't know when that's going to be. It's got to warm up a little bit for one.
Yeah.
And get some nectar coming in would probably help. I could push them to swarm, but I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to wait on the right time. I feel like that's everything.
We're going to have next week a solid week of really warm weather. We might even be up into, I think it said 83 on Thursday, Tom. So
no kidding.
I'm going to get a chance to go through everything next week. So I'll get a really good idea of where stuff is at. I'll probably do some equalizing next week. I might pull some splits, but that would be the earliest I've ever pulled splits, and that would be pushing it quite a bit. Did I hear you say earlier that April 1st was roughly your timeline for pulling your splits, Tom?
That's correct, yes.
And what are you dropping a cell in yours? Are you letting them raise their own?
No, I actually have mated queens coming up here out of northern Florida, kind of over near Jacksonville. Dennis and Melanie Cruz down there in northern Florida knew this young man out there. His name's Myron, and I spoke with him a lot last year, and I seen a lot of the queens and what Dennis had in his operation, which came from him. And him and I talked a little bit. Unfortunately, I was going to try to make it by his place when we were down there, but he was actually in the mountains of Tennessee with his wife, horseback riding, so I wasn't able to go by and play in the bees with him while we were down there. But so I had two people on my radar that I was really interested in, and I spoke to both of them. And Myron's who we're actually getting them from. I have an order of like 120 something coming in first week of April, and then I have another order coming in at the beginning of the second week, and that is mostly it's going to be going to the EMBA. But I told them if they didn't sell all theirs out, that I would absorb the other ones and cover the cost of them.
Yep.
There. So I'm going to be using mated queens. So I should be able to have those ready in 3 weeks. as long as weather stays appropriate, doesn't do anything weird. But again, that's kind of where this guy's coming into play at, that double screen board. I'm going to be building them and setting them all over a double screen board. Well,
so my question for you is, do you consider the addition in cost of that mated queen to be worth the trade-off of time that you save in preparing that nuke for the customer?
To get it out to them in an early, timely fashion, yes.
Yeah.
But I will say this: I'm not saying what I am paying for them, but I will say this: I'm pretty excited to be able to use these. And when you buy enough mated queens from somebody, you can. Now it's not going to be the same as a cell. I mean, we're not going to compare. Right. That's apples and oranges. It's not even on the same tree, right? Yep. It's not the same at all. But my goal is to be able to get these out to somebody as soon as possible. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that we're building everything. Again, the queens are not, but I'm building everything in-house. I'm not ordering anything to turn around and resell, anything like that. One other question that I actually had for you about the nukes. You were at 210.
Yes, sir.
Are you marking queens for that, or are they unmarked, or?
They're unmarked.
Okay.
You know, if a customer wanted me to mark a queen, I probably would for them. You know, I'm a small enough guy. I've only got 26 sold, so it's not a big deal. There would be a point where that would become a burden at some point. I don't mind marking queens. I'm going to check for queen rightness anyway. I'm going into that nuke to make sure it's being ready to sell, so it's not much additional work to mark that queen.
Yeah.
Brian Ruffles got a question for you up there. Can you see it?
Yeah, and in fact, Pete kind of answered that. A lot of people in these chats are saying, we're behind here in Colorado. I'm hearing we're ahead a week or two. I've heard a lot of stories of drones walking on frames here in the metro area. I've seen cap drones myself, and my buddy Matt has been talking to me about drones he's been seeing too. So that's an interesting difference I've been observing in my local area versus what other people in the country have been stating.
So I wonder if because you're basically in somewhat of a heat island, because you're in a metropolitan area, if that can hold, let's just say consistently that area was 6 or 7 degrees warmer of an average, as opposed to being a little bit outlying. I'm certain that could make a difference.
Yeah.
Now, how much? I don't know.
Why is it different this year versus other years, though? I don't know. It's not like we moved geographically. We're in the same place. So
that's right.
I don't know. But that's something that's a little different for me this year. So that's something I've been thinking about as well. So with that conference, I'm like, well, maybe I'll make my whatever colony I'm going to use as my starter finisher queenless before that conference. And then the following week, I can come back to it, make sure it's hopelessly queenless. And then I can drop cells into it, something like that. Prepping for grafting, that kind of thing. And I might just push the timeline and see what happens if I do it early. You know, I could take those queen cells and put them in an incubator if I need to as well. So,
well, let me ask you this: rather than building the nuke, scratching cells, why don't you build the nuke and immediately throw a cell in there with a cell protector?
Yeah, I could do that.
Mark, you're the queen guru here on the chat. What's your thoughts?
So I would that way I would just need to know how many queen cells I have, and then have to either do something else with the extra nukes that I don't have queen cells for, or know how many nukes I have to make for those queen cells on that day. And this is the thing I struggle with every year. It's the timing of all of these challenges with everything. Yeah. That's why the walk away nuke is so easy to do. I walk away, I feed it, I put a date on the lid, and I come back at that date. So it continues to be a goal of mine. Yeah,
yes.
Mark. I don't like doing the walk away nuke because I feel like it's a more inferior queen myself. It may not be, but it's just they don't have the amount of bees feeding them when they're being made, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to do. I've done it. Don't get me wrong, and your answer to dropping a cell, I try not to drop cells early in the year. I'd rather hatch them out into virgins early because the fluctuation of temperature has a whole lot to do, and you're going to lose a lot of them early if it gets cold on you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I try to do virgins first. And I don't do a whole lot. I don't get in a hurry to make a whole lot of queens right off the bat. I learned that a long time ago. Just start off slow and easy, and work your way into it harder and harder as the temperature stays more even keel. Then you start. That way, you've got more mature drones. You've got more food out there for your drones that are being bred or hatched out and all. So you get better queens.
Now, let me ask you a queen quality question here, Mark. What about with a flyback split where you take pretty much everything away from a colony and set it aside altogether, where they're making multiple queen cells on multiple frames? It's not 3 frames worth of bees. It's still almost 2 boxes worth of bees. Do you think those queens are a better quality than the 3 frame queens?
Okay, you're gonna have to refresh me on a flyback split.
Yeah, so I've got a big colony, and I'm going to take everything away from it except for its queen, a frame of brood, and maybe a frame of food. And I'm going to kick the shit out of it. I'm going to leave its forages for it, and everything else I'm going to set aside. So I made a giant queenless colony, right? Everything else goes into
and
2
you moved
boxes.
it over here somewhere, right?
That's right, 3 feet to the side. That's a big colony making a lot of queen cells on multiple frames. You with me?
Okay. Yeah.
Will they be better?
I don't like it. I don't like that.
Talk about that.
Okay, your influence of your cells is better when you've got more nectar and pollen coming through the door. If you take young bees, and I agree, young bees make cells, right? But you have no foragers bringing stuff in the door. That is key. If you take all the foragers away from your cell builder, you've got nothing coming in the door hardly.
So can I push back on that idea? Isn't that what happens in a queenless part of a starter finisher when you separate your cells on the top box and then forages are going in the bottom box? Isn't that the same problem?
And it's not as good. It's not as good.
So in your opinion, those queen cells would be best in the bottom box with the foragers coming into that bottom box.
It doesn't matter if it's in the bottom or whatever. Just don't
whichever box the foragers are going into.
Don't take the foragers away.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, let me ask you a question then, Mark. I'm going to kind of tag onto this. Let's just suppose you're going to lose a lot of your field force for one of these boxes. Okay, in that box where they're building queen cells, what if you left a couple of really good pollen frames, nectar frames, maybe some open and some closed, and then you feed them? I realize you're going to do something that may not be as good.
Hey, Joey.
You feed them like a 3/4 to 1 syrup or 1 to 1, whatever. And then you also give them some, maybe like a small piece of pollen patty so they can still keep some stimulation going there. What's your thoughts on that?
It works, but it's not as good.
Okay.
It's not as good.
And I bet this goes back to the double screen conversation, is why you put that box without the queen on the bottom so all the foragers go back to that, which is a question I've been wanting to ask Joey for a while now, as I've been seeing those screen bottom board splits. Is that the logic there, the foragers? And it's about, I guess, the space that mated queen has as well on the top box, and then you can walk away with that. Is that right, Joey?
Yeah. You talking about the queen being on top?
Yeah.
Making cells in the bottom?
Yep.
Yeah, you're getting all the flying bees and some of the nurse bees. You're getting a little all of it in the bottom. And in the top, in most cases, if the queen is in the bottom, the top just slows. I mean, if the queen is in the top, they'll eventually slow down a little bit because the all the foragers are gone.
Right.
But when she starts getting flying bees back, they're going to take off again.
So do you typically move that top box away then? Is that the
Yeah,
next
you
step?
can. You can.
What are other possible things to do then?
Yeah, I do that sometimes. Sometimes I'll pull that queen out, maybe 1 or 2 frames, and let them build some more cells
Okay.
in the top.
Cool.
I don't sing the same all the time. Is my mic working?
It was working before.
Did he
Yeah,
quit?
no, we can hear you, Joey.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's several ways to do that, and that's normally what I do now. Is if the queen happened to be in the top, I'll split that again and let them make cells. Now, most of the time, I like to push the queen down. And like I say, I've done it so many different ways. Everybody says, well, you say you do it this way, and then you do it that way. I got a good laying queen. I want her pushed down. You know, if she was a good laying queen, but now she's not, I might let her come up. And then I'll just move her off after, after I know I got cells in the bottom. I might move her off and let them make cells again, or move cells that's in another box over there to it. And I'm ahead
Or
of
you
the
can
game.
even then kill the old queen and then just recombine. So you're just requeening the colony.
But when I'm making nukes, I have another objective going too, and that is to pull all the brood I can from the mother hive. I like to use maybe like give her 3 frames of brood. Anything else gets pulled. And whatever I need for the nuke on above that divider board, like 3 broods and 2 foods,
Yep.
whatever's left to go on down the line somewhere.
Okay. Love all these different ways. It's so interesting.
Yeah. It can be confusing to somebody that you're trying to teach because you tell them one thing and then the next thing you do is something totally different.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure after watching you and world famous Mike Berry's last couple videos, I'd want to pay much attention to you either way.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I know how to make the queen disappear.
I'm sorry, Joey. I just had to throw that in there. You know how I am.
I tell you what, that thing's getting some views.
Yeah.
I'll go put her back in there in a couple of days.
Yeah.
So, Mark, Steven wants to go back to you. What's the best process for queens that you use?
What's the best process for?
That's his question. What's the best process then for queens that Mark uses?
I don't understand that question.
Yeah, why don't you just describe what you do, how you make queens?
What's your favorite way to make queens? I think that's what he's asking.
I graft.
Yeah.
If you're good at grafting, that's the best way.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. If I got a bunch of swarm cells and I need them, I'm going to use them. A swarm cell is the best.
Yeah.
Right.
But 90% of them I graft. And I use a lot of 3-ways mating nukes. And 5s. I do it all.
So I'm getting ready to do a presentation next week, and essentially the topic is all different ways you can do mating nukes. And the main idea is how I do my double nukes, but at the end I talk about different ways you could do it besides ways I do it. There's lots of different ways to do it. There's this, and this. I've never run a 3-way mating nuke, Mark. I understand a lot of the benefits of being able to pull the dividers and combine. I believe that one of the cons is sometimes queens can drift from box to box. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't like 2 holes on one side.
Yeah.
I want a hole each side and then one on the front. That gives me the back to lay frames down back to the back when I'm going through them, where nobody's entering. No, there's no confusion there, and it seems to work better that way. Each one's got their own side. Each individual's got a side.
Do you have any other cons to them?
They fill up quick.
They fill up quick. Okay.
They fill up quick.
Stay on top of them.
Now, and the only other thing versus, like, say, a small mating nuke, you can find the queen quicker. But when you've got 3 big frames full of bees, it's harder to find the queen, and a lot of times she'll be down in the box.
Yeah.
And it's going to take you a little longer sometimes. Not all the time. Usually you pull the frame up, there she is.
Okay.
But you're going to run into that.
Yep.
You know, it happens.
I've got one that's a 4-way, and I can't hardly get my hand down in there if she's walking around on the floor. I quit using it.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll do 3, and if I get 3 mated, I'll pull 1, leave 2, throw a queen excluder on, and put something up there, let them build. And then I'll come back. If I need another one, I'll come back. Now, I'll just make it 1 eventually.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm not selling a lot of queens and I need them, I won't get them as I can. If I sell a nuke, then I'll just pull a nuke out of 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's basically my talk. Like, I like to use the Mike Palmer 4x4s. That's basically my setup. But I use different ones. I use, I have little license mating nuke. I have the 6-frame license. I have a couple 5x5s. But the concept is the same. The 3-way nukes, the 4-way mating nukes. The idea is the same. It's just what you're doing with them.
Yeah. Brian, the only reason why I do it this way is I don't have to buy so much other different equipment. Yeah. I use the same frames, use the same boxes. If I need to build them up, I can just put a queen excluder on and let them build me some foundation out,
Which is part of why I was grilling Joey on the double screen board, because I imagine myself giving this presentation with Jeff, Mr. Ed, listening to the whole thing, and him shaking his head the whole time going, I don't need any of that stuff. All I need is a double screen board. And that would do the exact same thing. And he'd be absolutely right.
Now me and Jeff do it a little bit different too.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, Jeff just goes in there, and if he's got 6 frames of bees or so, he throws that divider board in, and he comes back in 7 days. And he pulls that top box off and looks down in the bottom for queen cells. A lot of times when I'm putting divider boards in, I'll actually go through it and make sure that I got good resources top and bottom.
I think he assumes based on population, right?
Yeah. Yep. But if you get the season is right, you get your rotation right and everything, 90% of the time the queen's on top.
Yeah.
And you see, and he knows that. And that's the way I used to do it until I started selling nukes. But now my main objective is making the nukes, not necessarily just splitting them.
Yeah.
So I go through and make sure I got resources top and bottom, then put the divider board in. And if I see the queen, I'm going to push her down. That way I know the top box has got what I want to make queen cells.
Yep.
He doesn't. He just splits them in half. And then when he comes back and finds cells in the bottom, he just takes that top box off and puts it where a dead out was at.
Right.
So he's not making nukes. I'm making nukes.
Right.
So there's
but his cells are being made on the bottom where all the influx of nectar is coming in, correct?
Right. And if it happened to be backwards, you just, in that theory that we've always used, you just rotate them around.
Right.
And get
put
that
the cells on the bottom.
Yeah. I just think you get better and more sales when you've got them with them older forgers coming in and out the door,
bringing a lot of stuff in
versus trying to feed them.
Yeah.
And it's the same true if you get a nectar dearth, for a little short while, you can tell the difference in your cells too.
Yeah.
They're not as
See-
big and sweet.
When I pull frames out of that mother hive to make those nukes, because of that divider board giving heat to those few frames at the top,
Right.
I don't have to shake extra bees. I just take what's on that frame. And if I have trouble finding the queen to make sure she's down, I shake everything, put an excluder on there after I set it up like I want it,
Right.
let them migrate back an hour or so, and then come pull the excluder and put the divider board in.
Yep.
Right.
So, and that way I don't have to shake a bunch of nurse bees. So I'm leaving a lot of nurse bees in the bottom.
Yeah.
Too.
It's easier.
Yeah.
A lot less work.
Yeah. If I could see, I'd graft it. I can't graft. I have to go buy cells. And this year, I was planning on buying cells from a guy close by, but the timing of when he had them ready and when I could do my split wasn't working out right. So
Yeah,
I just
you
went ahead.
gotta stay connected to make that work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, Cody has a question for you. With having the foragers coming in, do you have problems with them building comb on the cells?
Yeah, I put foundation in there. Give them something to do.
Any particular spot?
Nah, I have put the whole bottom in foundation before and build the whole bottom up.
Okay.
It just depends on how many foragers you've got. If I'm on my 4th round, I've got a lot of foragers in there. So I need space actually for stuff to go. You know.
Now, will you actually build cells on a 4th round? Like
Yeah.
with us? You will?
Yeah, and I'll go longer than that. I'll go all year. Just keep adding brood.
Okay.
I may have to move it. I may have to move it because you get so many foragers in there. You know, it's just building. You know. Yeah.
I got you. So you're just coming back. So let me ask you this: when you build a starter, how many rounds are you putting? Now, actually, I should say, is this a starter finisher or just a starter and then you move them?
The starter finisher.
Starter finisher. Okay, and you just come back and you're adding brood frames to it.
All I do is I wait till they get ready to swarm. I go in, find her, move her over here somewhere in a smaller box, give her enough to where she's going to lay in all, because I'm going to come back and I'm going to probably graft from her. Okay, so I've got her in a smaller box. It makes it easier for me to pull my graft out when I need ready to graft. All I do is I pulled her, I go in and get all them cells out. I'll go ahead and drop the graft in. They're not as good because they have larvae in there, right? And a lot of times I'll give her the larvae and just give her extra bees to take care of the larvae. That gets them out of my cell builder for the most part. Now I come back the next week. I've got to go through all them cells, make sure that there's no cells in there. Then I'm good to go from there on.
Okay.
Every time I add brood, I'm making sure that I'm coming back the next week and checking the ones that I added. And I'll run that all year.
Okay.
If I have to move it after about 4 rounds, I'll move it and then take her and put her back right over where them foragers are.
Now you're just moving it to alleviate some of those older forager bees that are becoming of a larger abundance.
More of a nuisance than anything.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah, because you've got ones that's hatching out that's becoming foragers with all the brood that you've got in it. Now, I add more bees and brood to that, even though it's ready to swarm. And you know what a hive looks like when it's ready to swarm. It's packed full. I add more to it on top of that.
Okay.
So when it's a double deep, just loaded with bees.
I think Joey fell out of his chair.
I've been trying to put my computer
There he
back.
is. He's back.
I've been trying to put my computer back together. We did schools today and yesterday at elementaries,
Mm.
and I take my computer and everything with me and do a PowerPoint, trying to put everything back together now. I just got back home. We had a beekeepers meeting tonight. So
how did the school talks go?
Yeah.
do what?
How were the school talks?
Oh, they were good. I let my wife do most of the talking. She does all the PowerPoint.
So you carry the stuff in and let her talk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she'll throw questions at me and make it look like I know a little bit of something.
Gives you some credibility, some street cred, right?
Yeah.
What'd you have for supper this evening? That's my main interest.
Me?
Yeah, at the bee meeting, did you guys get together for?
I actually was running kind of behind, so I didn't go to Sugar Shack tonight.
Well, I'm not interested. The rest of it, then I'm just interested in the Sugar Shack.
Yeah.
I didn't have any supper either, so I'm hungry.
Well,
Hey, so Brian, we were kind of on the subject of educating and talking to kids and things of that nature. The talk you have coming up next week, that's not the one that you're going to be delivering to Colorado. You're not talking about that one, are you?
The Pueblo one, yeah.
Is that next week already? Holy cow.
Yeah.
Let me look at my phone real quick because
So you should be in Colorado a week from today, Tom. Right? You coming on Thursday?
Holy cow, you're not wrong. I am going to be. Next Thursday we arrive.
Yeah.
Wow. Where did time go?
What's your talk gonna be on, Brian? I done forgot.
Just what we were talking about earlier. It's called the flexible use of resource colonies. It's how I use the Mike Palmer double nukes. But it's essentially like you should have production colonies and you should have resource colonies. This is how I run my resource colonies. And these are a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. That's pretty much it. I've been giving a couple different talks recently to the local clubs. One on spring buildup, and then one on different types of splits. So this conversation fits in perfectly around it. And then the one I'm doing next week is a new topic. So I just finished that up today.
Well, I'm looking forward to the one in Pueblo. So
they moved me to like 3:00 though, and I'm like, oh, that's my nap time. I'm gonna need like a 2:30 coffee to pick me up.
Hey, Tom, will you record him?
I was going to ask, what if you had a heckler in the audience and be like, who is this guy? Something
I'm used to that,
toes a little bit, Mark, you know?
Yeah, I'm used to that.
Hey, so what I'll do is if for some reason there's not enough stimulation in the audience for your Q&A, I'll develop some questions out there. We'll get people pumped up a little bit, you know?
Awesome. Love it.
There you go. Yeah, Brian, I can see you doing a really great job, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brian's a good teacher, man.
It'll probably be the biggest audience I've ever talked to as far as beekeeping goes.
You, man, that's awesome.
You know, I'm pretty comfortable at this point talking at local clubs. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty comfortable. Like I talked at the state meeting a little bit, but that's like 100 people. Like that's not a big crowd at all. So this will be the biggest one. I'm not sure I'd be ready to talk at like the EMBA conference kind of thing. I definitely have.
Oh yeah, you would. You'd be fine.
I'm not sure.
Don't sell yourself short.
I'd be nervous about it, Tom. I definitely have that. What's it called? The imposter syndrome a little bit. Like what am I doing here, standing next to Bob Binney?
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Well, we have some. I'll talk to you about it when we get into Colorado. But we have some different ideas that people had mentioned, and I thought was a good kind of a cool idea because people were like, okay, so for ours we had the beginner side, which was strictly beginner. That's the basics, right? And then we went into the experience side. But then, and I think about this, and I'm like, okay, there were some people that had said, hey, you need a second year beekeeper class, and I'm like. And it wasn't mentioned just once; it was mentioned a few times. And I'm like, what am I missing here? And I'm like,
coming out of winter. coming out of winter, and what do you do with those spring colonies? Those beekeepers don't know what to do. That's their first experience being a second-year beekeeper.
Well, and there was mention of it a few times, and I'm like, maybe we need to address this audience. If there's a need for it, we need to try to figure this out if it's within our means and the space, the facility, and things like that. So we had some generalized talk. There's nothing that's been settled down and full on, but we said, what if we do provide maybe a couple of classes, say the day before on Friday, that would involve, like in the afternoon, that would involve more of that second year to third year beekeeper. Nothing that's crazy advanced, but something like, hey, this is, like you just said, Brian, coming out of winter, this is what you should expect if everything is going correctly, and this is how you address that. Which I actually kind of built it into my spring management talk that I delivered for the last, was it at our meeting, Melissa?
Yeah.
I guess there was probably 100 people there.
Anytime I've ever talked about that, like going into the new season of the new year, first thing I tell the group is we started last fall.
That's right.
Getting ready for this season.
That was your preparation, right? That's when you started to prepare. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are no guarantees.
Nope.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's why us guys here in this crowd, that's why we still do this. It keeps us on our toes, I believe it takes a special type of person that is still beekeeping beyond 3 years and a couple of failures that are still doing this. You strive for that, I'm going to say perfection, knowing that we're not going to get it. We strive to do better every year. And it's like we always present new challenges and goals for ourselves. And we're like, okay, here's where I feel like I went wrong. This is what I'm going to do differently based upon my knowledge and the direction that I want to go. And we're going to try to do better the next year. At least that's how my mind works every single year. I'm like, okay, these are where I feel like my failures were at. I always have room for improvement. And this is the direction I'm going to try to go, or maybe curb a couple things, or I'll just try a couple things new, that I didn't try the year before.
Yeah. I think a good beekeeper is someone who always wants to try to walk with grace, with every step, type of thing. And just always trying to learn and do better than maybe we did in the past, and learn from our mistakes. That's all I can do, just going into my third year now. I feel like I know just enough to be dangerous, and here I am coming into my third spring, and I have coming out of winter with the 10% loss. I have a lot of resources and a lot of splits to make. Real soon I'm going to be up to my neck in my experience level, and getting into, and I have no problem kind of pushing that envelope. Mm-hmm. I've grabbed it last year, and I plan on doing it again this year. But just proceeding with caution, but being very intentional.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times that I went out to the bee yard and done something.
Mm-hmm.
I went back, went to bed, got up the next day and thought about what I did, and went back the next day and redone it and done it right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've done it 1,000 times.
Yep.
Once
That's
you
one of
sleep
the
on it,
reasons
you get
I
to
hate.
thinking about it. Then it comes to you sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I hate videoing myself. I see all them stupid mistakes. You're
your own biggest critic,
That's exactly it, Matt. That's exactly it. Joey, you'll probably notice more of those things than other people will.
Oh no. If I put some of these videos out that I'm looking at right now, people's gonna say, "You the stupidest beekeeper I've ever seen."
Oh.
Well,
That may be not far from the truth either.
No, I don't agree with that, Joey.
I doubt
That
it.
couldn't be further from the truth, man. I think us making these, you call them stupid or silly mistakes, whatever it might be, that's what, and we learn from them. That's what makes us, a better beekeeper, because we've experienced things. We've tried different things that maybe worked well or didn't work well, and everybody wants to manage their bees a little differently. Brian may not want to do the same thing that you were doing, Joey. He may want to manage differently because he wants something else over, maybe he wants more honey production over making splits, or, whatever that looks like, So and again, he's not going to manage in Colorado the same way that he would down south. The season's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Did you guys get a chance to talk about Steve's question at all about robbing the nukes?
no, I think that was addressed to you. So you
I
can take
had
that
to
one.
grab my cord. I was getting low on juice here. It definitely can be a problem. For me, the way I run my apiaries is most of my production colonies are in my outyards. Most of my small colonies are in my backyard, which I consider like my nursery. Now, it does have a couple of full production size colonies. It'll have like a breeding queen that I'm trying to graft off of, something like that. But it can be a problem in the fall. As soon as my nectar flow ends, it definitely can be an issue. I will lose a couple in the fall, like the weakest ones will get picked on, and I'll lose a couple. But overall, it's a negligible amount. I try to make sure I'm really diligent with feeding syrup and not being sloppy with it and spilling it all over the place or anything like that. Because that's anything that's going to induce a robbing situation, I'm going to prevent by not doing that, right? Any extra entrances, any gaps I'm going to prevent those from being an issue before they're an issue. So
if it's a brand new nuke, you need to wait till all the bees fly away before you put sugar water in them, or that's my opinion anyway. Because I made that mistake one time. I made about a dozen nukes, and I went and set them on a big picnic table in my yard till I could relocate them. And I went ahead and put about a quart of sugar water in them. And this was when I lived on the grounds where I worked. I came back over the next day, and I saw a lot of bees flying. I said, "That's not right. There's too many bees flying around these nukes."
Mm-hmm.
And what I saw was bees going in. They was robbing it. They wasn't hurting anybody, but they were robbing that sugar water out of that feeder and taking it back. So I had to just shut them up. That night, I'm going to tell you what I did to get rid of those flying bees. I put all those nukes on my carport at nighttime, took the lids off, and turned the light on. All those flying bees went up to that light. I closed the lid back up and moved them things somewhere else. But I learned not to put feed in a brand new nuke until all the flying bees had a chance to go back home.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
They were doing what I call friendly robbing.
Is there any robbing that's
this
friendly?
year?
They were
I
just
did that
taking
this year, Joey. My wife left my door open when I was harvesting honey late in the year. And I went out there and there was a gazillion bees in my shop. And I'm like, how am I going to get all these bees out of here? I just took a light and put it out there in the yard and opened the door, turned all the lights off in the shop. And they kept coming to that light, Got most of them out.
I was going to offer you another suggestion. It may not have been as productive, though. I'm saying you could have just set the shop on fire and they would have left.
Yeah, I need to, as much junk as I've got in that shop.
Just don't tell the insurance company that's what happened, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to make a suggestion to Steve Amos and consider the source of my comment here. I feed basically for middle of August clear through. Don't be afraid to feed those bees. If you think they're not getting enough to eat, dang sure don't be afraid to eat them or feed them, especially if you're trying to grow new hives, Steve.
Yeah.
That's just my thought on it.
Yeah.
Especially your small ones late in the year.
Yeah.
Get them built up. Build them up as hard. Even if you have to steal brood from somewhere else, get them built up. Don't just leave them on their own to build up. You can build them up. You've got resources. Do it.
And it's worth it to give up one or two of those colonies to use the resources to bulk up the other ones in the long run, because that bigger colony is going to have a greater chance of surviving. In the fall, I have just as much pressure from yellow jackets on my small and weak colonies than I do from other colonies. I also don't tend to run much Italian. So I wonder if that's a factor. I do understand that they can be pretty robby.
I guarantee that's a
Yeah.
factor, Brian. I guarantee it.
Yeah. No doubt about it.
Yeah, that's in my opinion, that's one of the biggest downfalls of an Italian bee is their robbiness by nature, because it can be good at certain times of the year, but it can also be detrimental at times. They don't quit. That's the
that
problem.
voracious appetite is dangerous in the spring too.
Yes,
They have
it
a
is
gluttonous
dangerous in the spring.
gluttony, is
Yeah. Well, and in that spring management talk that I had done, the one thing that I highlighted, and I pointed it out 3 times, and I'm like, the one thing that you really need to be doing this time of year is you need to open those colonies up and count how many frames of brood that you have in there. And I said, I want to see at least 1 full frame of food for every full frame of brood that you have in there. You have no idea how quickly, once those bees start to hatch out, if you have two sides that are, a pretty nice solid frame of brood on both sides, that 1 frame, when they finally hatch out, is going to turn into 2 frames of bees that are walking on frames. You don't think about that when they're in the cell. And I'm like, you have to be able to feed them. They're going to come out and they're going to be extremely hungry. And there's plenty of other brood in there that needs to be fed as well. So it's important that you keep the plenty of stores in there, because they can start to starve out very quickly in the early spring. Don't just get in them once and be like, they're good for 3 weeks. You better check them again, because when all those frames start hatching out, they're gonna start consuming stuff very quickly.
Yeah, the more the hatches out, the faster she's going to lay.
Yeah.
And the more she's going to lay, and the more food it's going to take.
Yeah,
Folks, it's getting right at 2 hours. If anyone's got any questions, bring them on in. I'm going to shut her down here in about 2.5 minutes. We've got 2 hours. I'm going to end the stream at least. So
we were just getting fired up.
Get them on here for these experts. That doesn't include me. By the way,
I've been putting a little thin feed to ours, and especially in some of our bigger yards for trying to get some production out of it for nuke sales. They've been taking it, and I know they've been using it too, so it's I'm not afraid to feed ours out of season, out of honey production. I'll feed them, as soon as I see they need it. If that brood's looking like it needs some more nourishment, I'll give it to them.
Yeah.
What advice do you give people when they ask you, is it time to feed syrup yet? What general guidelines do you give them?
That is that is one of the best questions that you can answer right there. I always start by saying there isn't a time or not a time to feed them. Don't go based on month or what have you. Open the colony and figure that out. You have to understand that by knowing what the colony needs. If you have the entire top box that's full of feed and you're in March, you probably don't need to feed. They're fine, because once that nectar rolls in, they're going to plug out and then they're going to swarm early on you. So I always say those bees need to tell you what it is that they need, based upon how many frames that you see in there.
But as far as temperature readiness, transferring from solid to liquid, what advice do you give people about putting that moisture into the colony? Yeah,
that's a good one too, I think. If it was really, really early in the spring season for us, talking like late February, early March, and you needed to feed, but you're having plenty of days that are probably well up into the 50s, those bigger colonies, they'll take 2 to 1. They'll even take 1 to 1. But, and I would say if your bees need it, you better give it to them, because if not, they're going to be dead anyway. You know?
Well, here's the thing with liquid feed. They have to break cluster to get to the liquid feed.
Yeah.
So if it's not warm enough for them to break cluster, liquid feed probably isn't a wise decision.
Yeah. Well, the smaller the cluster too, if it's a really small cluster, they won't break cluster to go feed, depending on this type of feeder you're using. I often will use a top feeder. They won't break cluster to go 3 inches up and over the thing to get that feed and come back down. If you had something on top of them, like right on top of the frames, or like a division board feeder next to them, they're probably more likely to do that. Bigger, healthier, robust colonies will break cluster because they can still thermal regulate easily while those foragers go up and grab it and bring it back down. So I think that depends on the size cluster. My opinion.
Okay, everyone, I'm fixing to shut her down now. So
We're just getting into this heated one.
Yeah, we're
just
getting
down
started.
over there. So
What a party pooper.
well,
We have not started feeding syrup yet. We're still finishing up whatever fondant we have.
But
Yeah.
mine also still have plenty of stores because I fed
good night,
them.
everyone.
Good night, JW.
We're not done here,
Night,
fellas.
JW.
Hi, everybody.
You're done.
Night, everybody.
Night.
Yeah, I'm not logging onto his thing anymore. Sheesh.
Now you can preach to the choir if you're so inclined.
Hey, we're still live, just so you know. I'll let you in that first.